Hi, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Byline. I'm Sabine.
And I'm Savani.
We're the co-founders of Hidden Compass, and we are here with journalist and photographer Cheng, who wrote and photographed a gripping story for our summer 2022 issue about the rise of rock climbing in Kenya. Casey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you about this story. This is our summer photo feature. The photos are wonderful. We want to know more about you as a photographer. How did you get started? How did you get to where you are now?
I would say my photography journey, it's pretty typical of a lot of people. And I didn't really pick up a camera until late in college, so about 5 years ago. And at the time, I had just switched my major from general liberal arts into ecology. So I had a couple of TAs and professors who were very inspiring and very Nat Geo-esque in terms of the scientific storytelling process. So yeah, I started wanting to photograph like the human element of the scientific process of when we're going out for field research or something like that. Just capturing what it looks like behind the scenes. And I ended up getting a postgrad fellowship from school to go to the Arctic. So yeah, super special opportunity. One of the most interesting things I feel like I'll ever do. But I was researching and writing about reindeer herders in the Arctic in northern Norway and northern Finland, and about how they were adapting to the climate change. So of course, you know, having a camera there, it's really just front and center. Like it became a big part of my process, and even so like my identity. So kind of photographing the day-to-day lives, and it was a bit of one of those longer term anthropological projects. It's just how it came to be. I would stay with these families for a couple weeks to a couple months and kind of see how they were doing things day-to-day life. And yeah, so that I would say that's really the genesis of when I started photographing things. And then currently, I work as an environmental journalist and photographer. Sometimes I'm freelance, so for different outlets. And I didn't start taking photos of climbing until just about last year. And I think part of it was wanting to not only be photographing things for work, which, you know, I really love, and I feel like I'm really privileged to have this as a job, but I wanted to kind of do it for fun again. And yeah, just have a really different take where it's not always reportage or documentary fashion. It's more just turning it back on my friends, and a big hobby that's important to me. So that's when I started photographing climbing. And yeah, it's a different process and always a lot to learn. And sometimes you're being rigged up on the wall where my friends are being patient with me and setting up an extra top rope so I can hang from the wall. And yeah, there's always something going on, so it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. What a great range of experiences. And I love what you said about bringing in the human element. And I'm also smiling because I have definitely done a similar sort of tack where I'll say, oh, you know, I'll do this just for me, and it'll be aside from work. And then of course it turns into a project, as you did with us. So let's talk a little bit about the story. There's a simpler version of this story that's strictly about rock climbing and doesn't get into these larger, profound subjects. Your version is not the simple version. It really goes beyond the rock wall. So what was it like to use the subject of climbing as a springboard into larger themes?
So as a relatively new rock climber, I've only done this for about 2.5 years. I kind of like that. Again, like I'm starting to literally learn the ropes in Kenya, where it's not where everyone starts learning how to rock climb. And with that, because it is a relatively new sport in the country, not the same way as in the US or Western Europe, I would say, there just isn't that much about it written, like on Climbing Magazine or Outside Magazine, you know, these major, relatively international outlets. Climbing in these different countries, is the pieces are few and far in between. And I think a source of not necessarily frustration, but also just, you know, kind of people feeling left off the map and not wanting the story to be really exoticized in a way that's like, oh, like, you know, African climbing. It's just climbing, you know, it's people in a different part of the world doing something that's really gaining global popularity. And kind of what Sabine was saying earlier, it's, I think when you're thinking as a journalist, it's just everything has potential to be a story. So yeah, climbing it's become a really important kind of like grounding part of my life. I've met a lot of really wonderful people through it. And yeah, and like my weekends in Nairobi, I really want to get out to Kenya and go climbing once a day. Just, getting out of the city, like being outside, doing something really physical, it just feels like a really good physical and mental cleanse. So yeah, I guess I just first it started with an article for Climbing Magazine about Kenya. And I'm really, yeah, again, I felt really lucky to work with this editor who, for a change in the outdoors journalism industry, which is of course quite niche. Like he was just interested in having good like narrative from the ground perspective, getting in all these local characters. So I guess like that was kind of what opened up my mind to the fact that there are so many stories that are just out there just in Kenya, and that I felt like would be really nice to explore. So when I heard about these guys, Alex and Mike coming in and wanting to bolt new routes, in a really small Kenyan climbing community where it's maybe 150 people, 200 people active on WhatsApp, and then actually going out to climb consistently, it's way fewer, a couple dozen people. So, we all know each other pretty well, and we've seen each other and are, it's friendly for sure. So just hearing about some guys coming in who are like, oh, we're gonna go explore totally different crags to bolt some new routes. Yeah, I just wanted to get in touch and see what was going on, and yeah, hear their side of things. So that's how I got the idea for the story.
It's fascinating how we find stories as journalists, and the way that we find them and the way they come to us often as well. Yeah. So with every story we publish, we launch patronage campaigns. For everyone who's watching, if you're not familiar with our model, these are campaigns that we launch alongside the stories that our audience can contribute to. And it reflects what we believe is a partnership between us, our writers and journalists, and the audience, you guys out there. And so 50% of the proceeds of each campaign, so 50% of the proceeds this campaign would go to Casey, 50% would go to Hidden Compass, that would allow us to continue doing what we do, and that's on top of what we already pay. So Casey, for people who have already contributed to your campaign, what would you like to say to them?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your support. I think it definitely means a lot to me. And in my other work, I work as an environmental journalist, so a lot about climate change, a lot about land use conflicts or land use tensions. So I think it's also validating for me to know that, yeah, there is an audience. There are like a lot of people who are interested and keen to hear about outdoors adventures in different countries. And I think maybe it sounds a little simplistic when I say it out loud, but sometimes when you're looking at things across media, and there have been like really amazing changes over the past couple of years, but as a freelance, as an independent journalist, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. So I think it's always nice to know that there is a readership out there, and not only are the people who I'm writing about and like with, I suppose in some ways, that they are happy with how they're portrayed, and the fact that other people are interested in the story. I'm happy that yeah, people are getting something a bit different or a bit more unexpected.
I love that call out to the personal connection. We feel so honored at Hidden Compass to facilitate that, to give you all who are watching this and reading these stories the opportunity to make that difference in storytellers and journalists' lives. So thank you for doing that. And Casey, thank you for this story, and thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.